I shall not want.
Good morning. Now this week I'm doing a series of Bible readings based on the time that my sister Ali and I spent a week this summer with our brother Tim, who's a new shepherd. So he's got a couple of dozen sheep down in Somerset, and it was a glorious week, and we were there as his helpers because his wife and family were away. Now, today we're going to talk about the shepherd's joy. Now, moving sheep from one field to another, or from a field to another area, is a task that takes a lot of planning. So this one day, Tim wanted to move the sheep from one field to the other. But before he did that, first of all, we had to realign the electric fence. So that took a lot of time, taking out posts, reeling in electric wire, and then putting posts back in another area, putting the electric fence down. And then we had to put ropeways so that the sheep wouldn't scatter everywhere all over the fields. And it took a lot of time, but then the actual execution took minutes. The sheep just plonked along and moved from one field to the other. Now, that was a usual task that Tim does, but then there was this one day and he wanted to spray the sheep. Now, his worry was his first recollection of when he first sprayed the sheep with his father-in-law, and it was chaos. Sheep were all over the place. They tried to pen them in, but it was a horrible task, and it took a long time, and it was very stressful. And I think Tim was thinking, here I am with my two sisters who are going to be a bit of a help, but not the same. They're not going to be able to do it. And he was trying to work out what to do. We went to the farmer's suppliers, and we saw the ideal bit of equipment, a sort of a walkway which pens the sheep in so they can go through in single file. Perfect. But the price was way out of what he could afford. He couldn't do that. So he had to work out a way of doing the same kind of thing with the little equipment that he had. So as you can imagine, it took a lot of planning. It took us some sleepless nights trying to work out, sort of putting hurdles together. These are fence bits that slot in and lots of roping. But we sorted out something, and then the morning came to actually bring the sheep in to be sprayed, and it worked like a dream. The sheep were calm, they went through single file, a little bit higgledy-piggledy, but they were happy, they went through, they weren't distressed, and the job was done. Now the sheep didn't have to do anything. All they had to do was follow Tim, get sprayed, and they were rewarded by some lovely sweet grass, which they really enjoyed. But Tim did a lot of work, and Ali and I did quite a lot of work as well. So there was a lot of preparation before the sheep went through. And that reminded me, in a small way, of the big thing that Jesus did. Now, before even the world began, God could see that he was planning this creation, but things were going to go wrong. And the Godhead, they had to plan in advance what was going to happen. And then Jesus had to come to this earth, and he had to execute that plan. He was the one who had to live as a human being here. He was the one who had to go through the agony of the cross and death and being cut off from God, but then the joy of resurrection. And that was, for us, we didn't have to do that. In Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 to 3, we read, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who, for the joy set before him, endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinful men, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart." And in there, it's the joy. Now, Tim, he had set up all this runway for the sheep, and just to see the joy in our brother when his plan went perfectly, and you could see that he was elated and joyful for the next day or two, which is quite a big thing for my brother. He was just so relieved and so joyful that his plan had come together and it worked and the sheep were safe. But even more so, here we have Jesus. He endured the cross, scorning its shame, for the joy set before him. And what was that joy? What's the joy that Jesus had? The joy that Jesus had and will have is welcoming us into glory, to seeing us, just sinners, people who didn't care less for him, yet just the joy of welcoming us into his kingdom, restored, forgiven, in fellowship with him. That's Jesus' joy. Jesus' joy is to see that we have a right relationship with God again. And may we experience that joy. Help us not to, and we mustn't give up. Jesus didn't give up. In Gethsemane, there he was. He prayed, "Father, if it's possible, is there any difference in this plan so that I don't have to go through all this?" And then he said, "But no, not my will, your will," because he knew that if he went through the plan, then the joy he will receive afterwards was worth it. Jesus said, we are worth it. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that wonderful? Lord Jesus, we thank you that you were willing to go through the cross, go through that agony. Just spending 30 years on this earth as a man, and then that death. We thank you that you were willing to do that for the joy of seeing us coming into fellowship with you, and for the joy that you will have welcome us into your kingdom. Father, give us that joy and give us that determination to never give up. May your day be blessed. Amen.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow, I shall dwell in the house of the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want.